There are some mysteries that are just so strange, so perfectly weird, that they feel like they were born to become legends. And the story of the Mary Celeste? Ugh, it's absolutely one of them. It's a puzzle that has hooked people for well over a century.
So let's set the scene. The year is 1872. And out there, all alone in the vast Atlantic, a ship is just drifting, silent, guided by nothing but the ocean currents. A true ghost on the waves. The crew, they had just vanished. Not a soul to be found, just an eerie, empty silence. Okay, let's dive into this baffling maritime mystery.
Right, so we're talking about the Mary Celeste. On December 4th, 1872, another ship, the Dei Gracia, spotted it. It was sailing kind of erratically, somewhere between the Azores and Portugal. The crew of the Dei Gracia knew right away that something was off, so they decided to go check it out. Now, from a distance, the ship looked fine. A little beat up from the weather, maybe, but totally seaworthy. The crew of the Dei Gracia shouted out to her, but nothing. Just silence. They tried again, and still, the only answer they got was the sound of the wind and the waves.
So they sent a boarding party over to investigate. And let me tell you, the second they stepped onto the deck of the Mary Celeste, that feeling of unease just exploded into total bewilderment. The ship was empty, yeah, but it wasn't a mess. It wasn't ransacked. Actually, it was in pretty good shape. And this is where the story gets really, really weird. The cargo, over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, pretty valuable stuff, was completely secure in the hold. Down in the crew's quarters, all their personal things, money, valuables, all untouched. There were absolutely no signs of a fight, no violence, no blood. And, most importantly, the ship itself was perfectly fine, totally seaworthy.
It was as if the crew had just stepped away for a minute. Everything was in its place, but they were gone. And this perfectly intact ship was holding a very dark secret.
The ship was almost perfect, but its heart, its soul, was missing. We're talking about its people. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their little 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and the 7-man crew had all just vanished.
That's 10 people gone, and the only other major thing missing was the ship's single lifeboat. Now, you'd think that would be a clue, right? That it would give us an answer. But it only makes the mystery that much deeper. It suggests they left the ship on purpose, but why? Why would you abandon a perfectly safe vessel for a tiny boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? And that right there, that is the question. It's the one that has puzzled investigators, historians, and storytellers for more than 150 years. Where did they go? So when you're faced with a situation this bizarre, people are going to start guessing. And the explanations ranged from the totally logical to the pretty out there. Let's dig into some of the theories that have swirled around this case for over a century. The first ideas were straight out of an adventure story. Vicious pirates, a bloody mutiny against a well-liked captain, or maybe even a giant sea monster dragging everyone into the deep. But the facts just didn't support any of those dramatic ideas. Pirates wouldn't have left behind all that valuable cargo. A mutiny? Come on, there would have been signs of a fight. So investigators started looking for something a bit more scientific, which led them right back to the cargo itself. Okay, so a more believable theory eventually bubbled up, and it centers on that cargo, the denatured alcohol. A few of the barrels were made of porous oak, and the idea is that some of them leaked, building up a whole lot of flammable fumes in the hold. Fearing a huge sudden explosion, Captain Briggs might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat, just as a precaution, just for a little while. But here's the massive hole in that theory. The crew abandoned their ship to escape an explosion that never actually happened. Maybe they tied the lifeboat to the ship planning to get back on, but the rope snapped, and they were just left adrift while their perfectly good ship sailed away from them. It's a plausible story, sure, but it's still just speculation. With no hard evidence, the story of the Mary Celeste just drifted into legend. At the first hearings, the court even suspected the crew of the Dei Gratia of foul play, though they were eventually cleared. It just made the mystery even deeper. Think about the missing pieces here. The ship's logbook was found, and its last entry was completely routine. No sign of any trouble at all. No distress signal was ever sent, and not a single one of those 10 people or any piece of their lifeboat was ever seen again. And so the story of the Mary Celeste became the ultimate ghost ship story. It actually inspired a famous short story by a young Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, he took a lot of creative liberties, but it's what cemented the ship's name in our collective imagination, making it one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time. So in the end, we're only left with questions. The ship tells us a story of a sudden, desperate departure. But the ocean, well, the ocean keeps its secrets. The truth of what happened that day is probably lost forever under the waves.
Which leaves us all to wonder, was it some kind of freak wave, a sudden waterspout, or just a terrible moment of panic that led to a tragic, irreversible mistake? So I have to ask, what do you think happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste?